So I've cleaned this up fairly well. And what I'd like to do now is separate these characters onto their own layers. So I'm going to use the lasso tool for that over here near the top left. Left clicking and dragging with the lasso tool like so. There we go. Just do my little lasso around. Mrs. Beak. Come up here, let go. It joins it up. I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut for this. Control C to copy that dragonfly on that layer. Control X to cut it from that layer, and then Control V. Control V means it puts it on its own layer. It's placed it over this direction. I'd like to go to the Move tool, go on top of the dragonfly, and move it up here for the time being. You can see it has its own layer where it says layer 1 here. Now I'd like to get the other creature here, and I'd like to cut around his wings like that, around there, here like that. That was a bit clumsy, but I'm going to keep that. And let go, Control C, Control. Now the problem there, why it said could not complete the copy, is because it was on the wrong layer. I was on the dragonfly layer. I need to be on the layer where the actual dragon is flying, so I've left click to click on that layer. There we go. So you'll get that happening a lot. It just means you've selected an empty layer. You've got the wrong layer you're selecting. Okay, so control keyboard shortcuts, Control C, Control X, it's deleted it, and then Control V. There we go. I'm going to use my Move tool, reposition it somewhere. I'm going to just put it up here for the time being. Now you'll notice it also has its own layer along with the dragonfly. It has its layer. This dragon has its layer, and we're left with this background copy layer. Now you'll notice that gap on his neck. I'm going to introduce you to a new tool. It's a stamp tool. Let's go find that stamp tool. So stamp tool is awesome. Here it is. Clone stamp tool. I click on it to select it. I'm going to move to an area of its neck here, and then I'm going to hold down Alt like so. This little icon appears over the cursor, and then I'm going to left click like that. Okay, I've taken a clone of that layer there. Again, I've made the mistake of making sure I didn't have my background layer selected. Okay, let me do that again. Hold down Alt, left click, and there we go, like so. So it's cloning this area and kind of patching that up for me. It needs a bit of cleanup here. I'm going to use my eraser tool, like so, just to clean it up a little bit. Okay, so now it doesn't have a gap in its neck that I had before. So I'm going to keep that, and I'm also going to move him down a little bit. There's my Move tool I've just clicked on, top left. Make sure you're on top of the actual character you're about to move, and just move him down a little bit like that. There we go. So he's on the ground, though it doesn't look like it the minute. Some things I'm going to do to that character down here. I'd like to add a shadow to the character. And another thing to make sure you do often is File, Save As. So I'm going to save to a folder I already have. I'm going to call this folder demo_ps for Photoshop. So let's open that folder and save this. Give it a different name as a Photoshop file. Dragon demo 001. I'm going to use that. Hit save. Okay, so I saved it. So if anything happens, it's saved to my local drive, saved to my D drive. Okay, I'd like to make a shadow of this background copy layer. How I'm going to do that? I'm going to click on, right click on it, go to duplicate layer, and it's saved exactly over the top of itself, that character at the bottom. Let me click on the eyes here so you can see. What I'd like to do to this top copy I've just stuck on top is I'd like to change its exposure to show you this shadow trick. So I'm going to go to image, adjustments, exposure, and get the exposure so that it's like that. So I'm going to keep that, hit OK. And I would like to show you another tool. It's going to be edit and free transform, or it can be Control T. So move it. I've clicked on the top middle here, this tool, and just moved it down like that. Move it up a bit. So I'm going to move it underneath my character in just a sec. And I'm going to keep that shadow there. There's some adjustments I want to do to it. Let me grab its foot area here with the lasso tool. Make sure I'm on the shadow layer when I do that. Control C, Control X, and Control V. So I've now copied that foot layer. So I've copied and pasted that foot layer onto its own layer. I'm going to get rid of the gradient background so I can see where it is. There it is. It's up here. It's copied it on top of the shadow layer. So with the move tool, making sure I'm over that shadow layer, I'm going to move it to its foot here. Precisely, I can use the directional keys to do that. And then the other thing I'm going to do is get the clone tool. And on that shadow layer, I've selected it. I'm going to hit down my Alt. And I can just copy like this so that I can join that up. A little bit fuzzy around that shadow, but that's okay. And I would like now to merge these two shadow layers together. I've got his foot layer, layer 3, and his main shadow in the background copy 2. So to do that, I need to go to layer and merge down. So now those two layers are merged down. If I go over the top with my move tool and click and drag, you'll see that they're on this now on the same layer. But what I'd like to do, I'd like to blur that shadow layer a little bit by going to the filter. There says blur tool there underneath filter, and I'd like to use Gaussian blur. Gaussian blur has a pixel level that I can use, and you can see the more I blur it, the less defined it is. I like it kind of softish, so I'm going to use that. Hit OK. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move the shadow underneath my character, like so. Okay, so there's a little bit of shadow. Also, I'd like to swap these layers so the black is on the top. Get a brush tool here. The cursor's a bit small. I'd like to make this a bit thicker. And with the drawing tool, I just like to add a little shadow under the footsie like that. There we go. Just add that. Now, the other thing I'd like to do is change the opacity of that shadow. Let me show you my gradient underneath. And so we've got a shadow now for a character. So with the opacity, I'm going to decrease the percentage of the opacity. And then we got a lighter shadow. anything underneath that, any texture will come through. So it's a handy little tool. So I'd like to change the size of this dragon up here that's chasing the dragonfly. It's on layer 2, so I'm going to click on that. To do that, I'm just going to hit Control T. That's freeform scale. And I've clicked on this corner here. Try and keep it the same ratio, even though I've changed the size. I've clicked in the middle to move it. And I'd like to rotate it a little bit, kind of make it, give it a little bit of an angle. And I'm happy with that. I'm going to hit enter and it stamps it down. I'd like to change the color of it and change the opacity as well. So let's change the opacity, making sure we're on layer 2, of course. Just take the opacity down a bit. I just made it a little bit more faded. And with the dragonfly, which is the top layer, I'd like to take that opacity down to about the same. The other thing we can do with these very quickly is just give them a little bit of colorization if we want, and this depends on how you took the photograph. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Hue, Saturation. So the hue is the color and the saturation is how strong the color is. So if I change the hue, you'll see it changes its color. If I change the saturation, whatever color it is, kind of gets brighter. So this, I like it to be a little further back, and I'm going to try and choose some cool colors, some greens and what have you, and hit OK for that. Then go to the bottom character, Image, Adjustments, Hue, Saturation. Let's put the saturation up first of all this time. And there we just added some color without painting it or anything. So there's a quick, easy way to quickly separate layers of a drawing that you scanned in, how to clean that up, add a gradient background, add shadow, and quickly add a little bit of color. Thank you for watching, and I'll add more tips and tricks for our next installment.